Part 1. The Trade That Changed Everything. Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked at the empty shelves of his trading post. The heat recycler had broken again, and he didn't have enough credits to fix it. Outside the small windows, the orange sky of Kepler 442c stretched endlessly, dotted with the ships of alien traders who barely looked at his little shop anymore. He had been on this frontier world for 3 years now. 3 long years of trying to make his grandfather's dream work. The old man had always talked about humans becoming the best traders in the galaxy. "We understand people," his grandfather used to say. "Doesn't matter if they have 2 legs or 6 tentacles. People are people." But Marcus was starting to think his grandfather had been wrong. The door chimed, and Marcus looked up hopefully. Maybe today would be different. Maybe today someone would actually buy something. The creature that walked through his door was unlike anything he had ever seen before. She was tall, nearly 8 feet, with silver-blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. Her eyes were large and golden, and when she moved, it was with the grace of a dancer and the power of a warrior. 6 arms emerged from her torso, each ending in delicate hands with too many fingers. Marcus had seen pictures of Zephyrians before, but never in person. They were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy, with technology that could destroy planets and create new stars. They rarely bothered with small trading posts like his. "Human," the alien said, her voice deep and musical. "I am Velothia, of the Silver Dawn Fleet. I come seeking something specific." Marcus straightened up, trying to look professional. "Of course. What can I help you find?" "My mate is dying," Velothia said simply. "He has fought in 1,000 battles across the stars. He has seen worlds born and civilizations fall. But now, his spirit fades. Our healers say his body is strong, but his heart has lost the will to fight." She paused, her golden eyes studying. "Marcus, carefully. I have heard stories of humans, stories of your courage liquid, something that gives strength to the spirit when the body fails. I have traveled far to find this thing." Marcus blinked. "Courage liquid? I'm not sure what you mean." "The brown liquid in glass containers, the one that burns when consumed, but fills the warrior with fire." Understanding hit Marcus like a punch to the stomach. "You mean whiskey?" Velothia nodded once. "Yes. This whiskey. Do you have it?" Marcus felt his heart sink. He had 1 bottle left, just 1. It sat on the shelf behind him, the last connection to his grandfather and Earth. It was a bottle from the Chen family distillery, made with his grandfather's own hands 60 years ago. The label was faded, but Marcus could still read Chen's finest, aged 25 years, in his grandfather's careful handwriting. I do have 1 bottle," Marcus said slowly, "but it's not for sale." Velothia's 4 arms moved in a gesture Marcus didn't understand, but her voice became softer, more desperate. "Please, human. My mate has been with me for 300 of your years. He gave me my daughters. He taught them to be strong. Now he lies in our ship, waiting for death, and I can do nothing. Our medicine cannot heal a broken spirit." Marcus looked at the alien woman, this powerful being who commanded fleets and ruled star systems, and saw something he recognized. Pain, loss, love. He thought of his grandfather, dying alone in a hospital on Earth while Marcus chased his dreams among the stars. He thought of all the things he never said, all the time he wasted being angry at the old man for pushing him to leave home. "How do you know it will work?" Marcus asked. "I have studied your people," Velothia said. "You are young as a species, but you have something we have lost. When you face death, you do not simply accept it. You fight. You rage. You refuse to give up. This courage liquid, it is part of that spirit, yes?" Marcus walked to the shelf and picked up the bottle. The whiskey inside was dark amber, like liquid gold. He had been saving it for, what? A special occasion that might never come? Success that seemed further away each day? This bottle, he said, turning it in his hands, was made by my grandfather. It's the last one from our family distillery. It's worth more to me than credits. Then name your price, Volothia said immediately. I will pay anything. Marcus shook his head. That's not what I mean. This bottle, it represents my family's history, my connection to Earth. If I give it to you, I give it freely, as a gift, from one being who has lost someone to another. Volothia's golden eyes widened. You would gift something so precious to a stranger? Not a stranger, Marcus said, holding out the bottle. A mother trying to save someone she loves. Volothia took the bottle with trembling hands. She held it carefully, as if it might break at any moment. I do not understand human customs well, she said. But among my people, such a gift creates a debt that can never be repaid. You have given freely of something precious. By our laws, I am now bonded to your bloodline until this debt is satisfied. Before Marcus could ask what that meant, Volothia reached into a pouch on her belt and pulled out a small crystal. It was no bigger than Marcus's thumb, but it pulsed with inner light that seemed to shift through every color he had ever seen. Take this, she said, pressing it into his palm. It will let me know if you ever have need of the Silver Dawn fleet. Do not lose it, human Marcus Chen. You have given my family hope. We do not forget such gifts. Volothia turned to leave, then paused at the door. What is your full name? She asked. For our records, Marcus Chen. My grandfather was Wei Chen, master distiller of Guangzhou Province, Earth. Volothia repeated the names slowly, as if memorizing them. Then she was gone, leaving Marcus alone with the strange crystal and the empty space where his grandfather's whiskey used to be. For a moment, Marcus wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. That bottle had been his last link to home, to family, to the dreams his grandfather had shared with him under the stars of Earth. But then he looked at the crystal in his palm, feeling the warm pulse of its light, and remembered the look in Volothia's golden eyes. Maybe his grandfather had been right after all. Maybe understanding people, no matter how alien, was the key to everything. The crystal suddenly grew brighter, and Marcus felt a strange tingling in his mind. For just a moment, he could swear he sensed something. Gratitude, relief, and something deeper. Joy. Somewhere in space, in a ship beyond his imagining, an ancient warrior was drinking Earth whiskey and finding the strength to face his final days with dignity. Marcus smiled and carefully placed the crystal on his grandfather's old desk. Outside, the orange sky was darkening toward night, and the first alien ships were beginning their landing patterns at the nearby port. He had no idea that his simple act of kindness had just changed the fate of humanity forever. He had no idea that 3 ships were already adjusting their courses toward his small trading post. He had no idea that 3 alien princesses were preparing for a journey that would reshape the galaxy. All he knew was that he had helped someone, and that felt better than any profit he might have made. The crystal pulsed gently on his desk, a warm reminder that sometimes the most important trades were the ones made with the heart, not the head. And in the quiet of his little trading post on the edge of known space, Marcus Chen began to understand what his grandfather had really meant about people being people, no matter how many arms they had or what color their skin might be. The galaxy, it seemed, was about to get a lot smaller and a lot more interesting. Part 2. 3 ships, 3 daughters. 3 days had passed since Volothia left with the whiskey bottle. Marcus had almost convinced himself that the whole thing had been a dream, except for the crystal sitting on his desk. It pulsed softly every Few hours, like a distant heartbeat. Marcus was fixing his broken heat recycler when the first ship appeared. It came down from the orange sky like a silver arrow, sleek and dangerous. The ship was smaller than Velothia's massive vessel, but Marcus could see weapons that could probably destroy his entire trading post with one shot. It landed gracefully in the open area behind his shop, sending up clouds of red dust. Before Marcus could even put down his tools, two more ships descended from the sky. One was painted in deep blue with golden symbols that seemed to move and shift in the light. The other was pure white, so bright it almost hurt to look at. Marcus wiped his hands on his work clothes and walked outside. His mouth felt dry and his heart was beating fast. 3 alien ships meant either very good business or very big trouble. On a frontier world like Kepler 442c, it was usually trouble. The silver ship opened first. A ramp lowered with a soft hiss, and someone walked out. Marcus had thought Velothia was impressive, but this new Zephyrian was something else entirely. She was tall like her mother, but built like a warrior. Her silver-blue skin had darker patterns that looked like armor, and her 6 arms moved with perfect coordination. Most shocking of all, she wore actual armor, black metal that gleamed with inner light, and weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. She looked at Marcus with eyes the same golden color as her mother's, but colder, much colder. "You are Marcus Chen," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Marcus managed to say. "Can I help you?" The blue ship's ramp lowered next, and a second Zephyrian emerged. This one was different, taller and thinner, with pale blue, skin covered in intricate tattoos that seemed to glow faintly. Instead of weapons, she carried books and strange devices that Marcus couldn't identify. Her movements were precise and careful, like someone who spent more time thinking than fighting. White ship was last. The Zephyrian who stepped out was smaller than the others, with skin so pale it was almost transparent. But her eyes sparkled with energy that seemed to dance and play. When she moved, the air around her shimmered like heat waves. The 3 alien women stood in a line, looking at Marcus. He felt like a mouse being studied by 3 very different cats. The warrior spoke first. "I am Lyrillith, eldest daughter of Velothia of the Silver Dawn Fleet. You gave our mother something precious." The scholar stepped forward. "I am Nisara, middle daughter. Your gift saved our father's honor." The youngest smiled, and when she did, small sparks of light danced around her fingers. "I am Zephira, youngest daughter, and you, Marcus Chen of Earth, are now our destined mate." Marcus blinked. "I'm your what?" "Our mate," Lyrillith said simply. "When you freely gave our mother something of great value, you created a marriage bond by ancient law. The crystal she gave you is proof of this bond." Marcus felt the world spinning around him. Wait. Marriage bond? I just gave her a bottle of whiskey because she needed help. Nisara nodded, consulting one of her devices. "Yes, that is correct. According to Zephyrian law, section 847, subsection 23, any being who freely gifts something of great personal value to save the life or honor of a Zephyrian family member becomes bonded to that bloodline. The bond must be honored by marriage or combat." "Combat?" Marcus squeaked. Zephira laughed, a sound like silver bells. "Do not worry, little human. We do not wish to fight you. We wish to marry you." "All 3 of you?" Marcus sat down hard on a nearby crate. "At the same time?" "That is the law," Lyrillith said. "But first, you must prove yourself worthy. We cannot marry someone weak or foolish. It would dishonor our family." Marcus looked from one alien woman to another. They were all beautiful in their strange, otherworldly way, but they were also clearly dangerous and powerful and completely serious about this marriage thing. "What if I say no?" he asked. The three sisters exchanged glances. Nisara consulted her device again. If you refuse the bond, she said carefully, it would be considered an insult to our family. Our mother would be honor-bound to respond appropriately. Which means, Marcus asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. War, Lyrelith said simply, between your species and ours. Marcus felt his stomach drop. War? Over a bottle of whiskey? Not over whiskey, Zafira said gently. Over honor. You created a sacred bond. To break it would shame our family before the entire galaxy. We cannot allow that. Marcus rubbed his face with his hands. This was insane. He had just wanted to help a grieving mother, and now he was somehow engaged to 3 alien princesses and responsible for preventing an interstellar war. Okay, he said slowly. Let's say I agree to these tests. What exactly do I have to do? Lyrelith stepped forward, her hand resting on one of her weapons. You must prove your courage in battle. Face me in combat and show that you have the warrior's heart. I must test your mind, Nisara said. Solve the riddles that have puzzled our greatest scholars. Prove that you are worthy of joining our intellectual bloodline. Zafira's eyes sparkled brighter. And you must show mastery over the chaotic energies that flow through all things. Control the power that drives our technology and shapes our world. Marcus looked at the 3 challenges and felt completely hopeless. He wasn't a warrior. He was a shopkeeper. He wasn't a great scholar. He had barely finished basic education on Earth, and he definitely didn't know anything about alien energy. Manipulation. This is impossible, he said. I'm just a human. I can't do any of those things. Cannot? Lyrelith raised one eyebrow. Or will not try. Something in her tone reminded Marcus of his grandfather. The old man had always said that humans were tougher than they looked, smarter than others expected, and capable of surprising everyone, including themselves. Marcus stood up and brushed the dust off his clothes. Fine, I'll try. But I do this, my way, using human methods. Deal? The 3 sisters looked at each other again. Some silent communication seemed to pass between them. Deal, they said together. When do we start? Marcus asked. Lyrelith smiled, and it was not a gentle expression. Now. Before Marcus could react, she moved. Her hand went to her weapon, drawing it in one smooth motion. But instead of attacking, she tossed it to him. Marcus caught the weapon awkwardly. It was heavier than it looked and hummed with energy that made his teeth ache. First test, Lyrelith announced. Survive until sunset. I will hunt you across this desert using all my skills and training. If you live until the orange sun touches the horizon, you pass. If I catch you, she shrugged. We will see if humans are as tough as they claim. What? Marcus stared at the weapon in his hands. Right now? I don't even know how this thing works. But Lyrelith was already walking back toward her ship. You have 1 hour to prepare, she called over her shoulder. Use it wisely, little human. Your species' future may depend on how clever you are. Marcus looked at the weapon, then at the endless red desert stretching around his trading post, then at the 2 remaining sisters. Is she serious? He asked. Nisara nodded gravely. Lyrelith has never lost a hunt. She has tracked criminals across entire star systems and warriors through the depths of space. Zafira patted Marcus on the shoulder with one of her hands. The touch sent tiny sparks of energy through his shirt. Do not worry, Marcus Chen. We believe you are more capable than you know. That is why the bond chose you. As the sisters returned to their ships to observe the hunt, Marcus stood alone in the red dust, holding an alien weapon and facing impossible odds. But somewhere in the back of his mind, his grandfather's voice whispered, People are people, boy. Doesn't matter how many arms they have. And sometimes, being underestimated is the greatest advantage of all. Marcus looked at the weapon in his hands, then at the vast desert around him, and began to plan. The hunt was about to begin. Part 3. The Hunt. Begins. Marcus had 1 hour to prepare for a hunt that could end with him dead. He stood in the red desert behind his trading post, holding the alien weapon and trying not to panic. The weapon was smooth and warm in his hands. When he touched a small button on the side, it hummed louder, and a blue light appeared along its edge. It looked like some kind of energy sword, but Marcus had never used anything more dangerous than a screwdriver. He looked around the desert. Red rocks stretched to the horizon, broken by small hills and deep canyons. There were a few twisted trees and some thorny bushes, but mostly just empty space and places to hide. The orange sun was high overhead, giving him maybe 6 hours until sunset. 6 hours to stay alive against an alien warrior who had never lost a hunt. Marcus took a deep breath and tried to think like his grandfather. The old man had been a soldier before he became a distiller. He used to tell stories about fighting, in wars, about how the smaller army sometimes beat the bigger one by being smarter, not stronger. Know your enemy, his grandfather used to say. Know the ground, and always remember, the other guy expects you to fight fair. Marcus didn't plan to fight fair. He spent his hour of preparation very carefully. First, he studied the weapon until he figured out how to turn it on and off. Then he walked around his trading post, looking at every rock, every canyon, every place where someone could hide or set a trap. Finally, he went inside and gathered supplies. Water bottles, energy bars, a few tools from his repair kit, and most importantly, his grandfather's old military compass and a small mirror he used for shaving. When Lyrillith emerged from her silver ship, she looked like death in armor. Her weapons gleamed, her movements were perfect, and her golden eyes scanned the desert like a predator looking for prey. "Time is up, little human," she called out. "The hunt begins now. Run!" Marcus didn't run. Instead, he walked slowly toward the nearest canyon, making sure Lyrillith could see exactly where he was going. He wanted her to follow. Lyrillith smiled, showing teeth that were just a little too sharp. Interesting. Most prey runs immediately. You choose to make this easy for me? Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe I'm not as stupid as I look. He disappeared into the canyon, and Lyrillith followed at a distance. She was confident, moving like someone who had done this 1,000 times before. Marcus was just a human, slow, weak, with no special abilities. This hunt would be over quickly. She was wrong. Marcus had spent his hour learning every inch of that canyon. He knew where the loose rocks were, where the shadows fell, and most importantly, where the old mining tunnels connected to the surface. The previous owners of this land had dug deep looking for rare minerals, leaving behind a network of passages that most people forgot about. But Marcus remembered everything his grandfather had taught him about using the ground to your advantage. Lyrillith entered the canyon carefully, her enhanced senses alert for any sign of her prey. She could hear his heartbeat, smell his fear sweat, even detect the heat of his body with her special vision. Hunting humans was almost too easy. She followed, his trail deeper into the canyon, expecting to find him cowering behind a rock or trying to climb the walls. Instead, she found his shirt hanging on a thorny bush, still warm with body heat. Lyrillith frowned. This was unexpected. She examined the ground more carefully. The human's footprints led in 3 different directions. How was that possible? She followed the strongest scent trail, moving faster now. The hunt was taking longer than it should. 20 minutes later, she found his boots. Empty boots, placed carefully on a rock like a taunt. Now Lyrillith was angry. No prey had ever made her look foolish like this. She activated her armor's advanced sensors, scanning for any trace of the human. Her equipment could track a mouse in a thunderstorm, could find a single person on an entire planet. But somehow, Marcus Chen, had vanished. What Lyrolith didn't know was that Marcus was right above her, pressed flat against a narrow ledge he had climbed to using the mining equipment he'd found. His grandfather had taught him that sometimes the best hiding place was the one nobody thought to look. He watched Lyrolith search below him, getting more frustrated by the minute. Good. Frustrated people made mistakes. Marcus waited until she moved deeper into the canyon, then dropped silently to the ground behind her. He had left his shirt and boots as decoys while he moved barefoot through the tunnels, using paths that led him around and behind his hunter. Now came the hard part. Marcus picked up a small stone and threw it into the rocks ahead of Lyrolith. She spun toward the sound, weapons ready, just as Marcus had hoped. While she was distracted, he used his small shaving mirror to reflect sunlight into her eyes from behind. Lyrolith whirled around, temporarily blinded by the bright flash. In that moment of confusion, Marcus struck. But he didn't attack with his weapon. Instead, he used his grandfather's old climbing rope, which he had set up earlier while exploring the tunnels. The rope was tied to a large rock balanced carefully on a ledge above. Marcus yanked the rope, and the rock came crashing down, not at Lyrolith but behind her, blocking the narrow canyon passage. Lyrolith spun to see the rock slide cutting off her escape route. When she turned back, Marcus was standing 50 feet away, no longer running or hiding. Clever, she admitted. But now you are trapped in here with me, little human, and I am still the better warrior. Marcus nodded. You're right. You are stronger, faster, and better trained than me. In a fair fight, I would lose in seconds. Then why do you not run? Marcus smiled, and for the first time, he looked confident. Because this isn't a fair fight anymore. You're not hunting me now. I'm hunting you. Before Lyrolith could ask what he meant, Marcus pressed a button on a small device he held. It was a transmitter from his trading post's communication system. Suddenly, every speaker in the canyon came alive with noise. Marcus had hidden them during his preparation hour, connecting them to his ship's audio system. The canyon filled with the sounds of battle, explosions, weapon fire, screaming, the noise of a dozen different wars playing at maximum volume. Lyrolith's enhanced hearing, so useful for tracking prey, became a weakness. The overwhelming noise made her stagger, her sensitive ears ringing with pain. But Marcus wasn't done. He had studied Zephyrian psychology during his 3 years on the frontier. They were a proud warrior culture, but they had one weakness. They always expected their enemies to fight like warriors, too. Marcus fought like a human. While Lyrolith struggled with the noise, Marcus activated every piece of mining equipment in the canyon. Lights flashed, machines roared to life, and clouds of red dust filled the air. The orderly battlefield became chaos. In the confusion, Marcus did something no Zephyrian warrior would ever do. He disappeared again, but this time he didn't hide. He started moving constantly, using the noise and dust to mask his location, striking from unexpected angles with non-lethal attacks. He threw rocks to distract her, used his mirror to flash lights in her eyes, set off small explosions of mining charges in empty areas to confuse her sensors. Every few minutes, he would tap her armor with his energy weapon, not hard enough to hurt, but enough to prove he could have killed her if he wanted to. For 2 hours, Lyrolith tried to fight an enemy who wouldn't stand still, wouldn't fight fair, and wouldn't follow any of the rules of honorable combat. Finally, exhausted and covered in red dust, she stopped in the middle of the canyon and laughed. "Enough!" she called out. "I yield!" The noise stopped. The dust began to settle. Marcus emerged from behind a rock, also covered in dirt but grinning widely. "You yield?" he asked. "But the sun hasn't set yet." Lyrolith removed her helmet, shaking red dust from her silver-blue hair. "You have already won, Marcus Chen. I have been hunting for 300 years, and no prey has ever made me look so foolish. You did not defeat me with strength or speed. You defeated me by thinking like something I could not predict." She walked over to him and placed one of her 6 hands on his shoulder. You fought like no warrior I have ever seen. You used the ground, the noise, the confusion, things that would never occur to a Zephyrian. You turned my strengths into weaknesses, and your weaknesses into advantages. Marcus felt a warm glow of pride. My grandfather always said, humans are good at adapting. Your grandfather was wise, Lyrelith said. You have passed the first test, little human, but remember, my sisters will not underestimate you as I did. As they walked back toward the trading post, Marcus felt something changing inside him. For the first time since leaving Earth, he felt like he belonged somewhere, like he was good at something important. He had no idea that passing Lyrelith's test had just marked him as a potential threat to powers much greater than 3 alien princesses. He had no idea that his victory was being watched by enemies who saw humanity's adaptability as a danger to their control of the galaxy. All Marcus knew was that he had survived his first trial, and somehow, impossibly, he was looking forward to the next one. The sun was still high in the orange sky, and 2 more tests awaited him. Part 4. The Scholar's Riddle. The next morning, Marcus woke up sore all over. Fighting Lyrelith had been harder on his body than he expected, but he felt good about winning. 1 test down, 2 to go. He found Nisara waiting outside his trading post. The middle sister sat cross-legged on the red ground, surrounded by floating books and devices that glowed with soft blue light. Her pale blue skin was covered in tattoos that seemed to move and shift like living things. Good morning, Marcus. Chen, she said, without looking up from the holographic symbols dancing in the air before her. Are you ready for your second test? Marcus poured himself coffee from his small kitchen unit. Let me guess. You want to test my brain instead of my fighting skills. Correct. Nisara finally looked at him with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Physical courage is useful, but the mind is the true weapon. Any fool can swing a sword, but only the intelligent can solve the problems that matter. She waved one hand, and the floating books arranged themselves in a circle around Marcus. Each book was different. Some were made of crystal, others seemed to be made of pure light, and a few looked like they were carved from stone older than planets. These contain the 3 great riddles of Zephyr, Nisara explained. For 1,000 years, our greatest scholars have tried to solve them. Many have spent their entire lives working on just one. You must solve all 3 before the sun sets, or you fail the test. Marcus sat down across from her, trying not to look nervous. What happens if I fail? Then you are not worthy to join our family's intellectual bloodline, Nisara said simply. And my sister Zephyra will be very disappointed, because she likes you. One of the crystal books floated over to Marcus and opened itself. Strange symbols appeared in the air above it, glowing and shifting in patterns that hurt his eyes to look at directly. The first riddle, Nisara announced. The question of universal truth. What is the one thing that exists in every place, at every time, in every universe, yet can never be measured, touched, or destroyed? Marcus stared at the symbols. They meant nothing to him. They could have been shopping lists or love poems for all he knew. He looked around at the other books, hoping for a clue, but they were all closed. Can I ask questions? He said. You may ask anything you wish, but I will only answer with truth or silence. Marcus thought about the riddle. Something that existed everywhere and everywhen, but couldn't be measured or touched. His first instinct was to think of air or energy, but those could definitely be measured. How long have Zephyrian scholars been working on this riddle? He asked. 843 years, Nisara replied. And none of them solved it? None. Marcus frowned. That's a long time for really smart people to work on one problem. Maybe they're thinking about it wrong. Explain. Well, Marcus said, slowly. If your smartest people can't solve it, maybe it's not the kind of problem that requires being smart. Maybe it requires thinking differently. He looked at the symbols again, but this time he didn't try to read them. Instead, he thought about what his grandfather used to say about complicated problems. Sometimes the answer isn't in the question, the old man had said. Sometimes you have to step back and look at why someone is asking the question in the first place. Nisara, Marcus said, why do you want to know the answer to this riddle? Because it is important, she replied. But why is it important? Nisara paused. Because understanding universal truth is the goal of all intellectual pursuit. But what if the riddle isn't about finding universal truth? Marcus asked. What if the riddle is the universal truth? Nisara's tattoos stopped moving. Explain this thought. Marcus stood up and walked around the floating books. You asked what exists everywhere, every time, but can't be measured or touched. What if the answer is questions themselves? Questions? Think about it, Marcus said, getting excited. Every thinking being in every universe asks questions. Questions exist wherever there is consciousness. They can't be measured because they're not physical things. They can't be destroyed because even if you answer one question, it just leads to more questions. And questions exist in every time, past, present, and future. Nisara was very quiet for a long moment. Her tattoos began moving faster, shifting into new patterns. The universal truth, she said slowly, is that there will always be things we don't know. Questions are eternal because knowledge is infinite. The first crystal book closed itself and dissolved into sparkling dust. Remarkable, Nisara whispered. In 5 minutes, you solved what we could not solve in 8 centuries. How? I didn't try to be smarter than your scholars, Marcus said. I just tried to think like a human, instead of like a Zephyrian. The second book floated over, this one made of pure light that shifted through every color Marcus had ever seen. The second riddle, Nisara announced. The problem of infinite. Regress. If every effect has a cause, and every cause is itself an effect of a previous cause, how can anything ever begin? This time, Marcus didn't even try to understand the symbols that appeared. Instead, he thought about the problem like his grandfather would have approached fixing a broken machine. Can I see what other scholars have tried? He asked. Nisara waved her hand, and the air filled with thousands of complex diagrams, mathematical equations, and philosophical arguments. Marcus looked at them all and started laughing. What is amusing? Nisara asked, sounding offended. They're all trying to find the first cause, Marcus said. Like looking for the beginning of a circle. But what if there isn't a beginning? That is impossible. Everything must have a beginning. Says who? Marcus asked. Look, on Earth we have this thing called a feedback loop. The output becomes the input, which creates more output, which becomes more input. It's a circle with no beginning and no end. He walked over to one of Nisara's devices and picked it up. This machine, it uses energy to create a field, and the field powers the machine. Where does it begin? Nisara stared at her device. It is a closed system. It sustains itself. Right. So what if the universe isn't a chain of causes and effects? What if it's a closed loop? Every effect causes its own cause, going around and around forever. No beginning needed. The light book pulsed once and disappeared. Nisara was staring at Marcus like he had grown extra arms. 2 riddles. 2 completely different approaches. You solve them by ignoring our methods entirely. Different species, different ways of thinking, Marcus said. What's the third riddle? The stone book floated over. This one was heavy and ancient, covered in carvings that seemed to shift when Marcus wasn't looking directly at them. The third riddle, Nisara said, her voice shaking slightly. The paradox of knowledge. The more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. If knowledge increases ignorance, how can wisdom ever be achieved? Marcus looked at the stone book, then at Nisara, then at all the floating devices and magical technology around them. "Can I ask you something personal?" he said. "Yes." "Are you happy?" Nisara blinked. "Happy? What does happiness have to do with wisdom?" "Everything," Marcus said. "Look, you know more things than I could learn in 10 lifetimes. You have technology. That seems like magic to me. You can solve problems I can't even understand. But when you asked these riddles, you sounded sad. Sad. Like someone who has spent so long looking for answers that you forgot why you wanted them in the first place." Marcus sat down in front of her. "My grandfather wasn't the smartest man on earth. He never went to fancy schools or discovered new science. But he was wise because he knew that wisdom isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing what's worth knowing." "And what is worth knowing?" Nisara asked quietly. "How to help people. How to make things better. How to be kind." Marcus smiled. "The paradox isn't real. Knowledge doesn't increase ignorance. It increases humility. The more you learn, the more you realize how much other people have to teach you. And that makes you wiser, not more ignorant." The stone book crumbled to dust. Nisara sat in the sudden silence, surrounded by her floating devices and accumulated knowledge of 1,000 years. Slowly, she began to smile. "I have spent my entire life collecting facts," she said. "But you have shown me something I never learned from books." "What's that?" "That wisdom is not about having all the answers. It is about asking the right questions and caring about why the answers matter." She stood up and bowed formally. "You have passed the second test, Marcus Chen. But more than that, you have taught the teacher something new." As the sun began to set over the red desert, Marcus felt a warm glow of accomplishment. 2 tests down, 1 to go. But he also felt something else. A strange tingling in the back of his mind, like someone was watching him from very far away. And somehow he knew that solving these riddles had changed more than just his relationship with Nisara. It had changed him. "Tomorrow," Nisara said, "you face my youngest sister. Her test will be different." Marcus looked at the crystal Velothea had given him. It was pulsing faster now, brighter, as if responding to something he couldn't see. "Different how?" he asked. Nisara's smile became mysterious. "Zafira does not test the body or the mind, Marcus Chen. She tests the soul." Part 5. The Heart of Energy on. The third day, Marcus found Zafira sitting on the roof of his trading post, her legs dangling over the edge like a child. But there was nothing childlike about the energy that danced around her pale, almost transparent skin. Lightning crawled between her fingers, and the air itself seemed to shimmer and bend around her. "Hello, Marcus Chen," she said without looking down at him. "Are you ready for your final test?" Marcus climbed up the ladder to join her on the roof. This close to Zafira, he could feel the energy radiating from her like heat from a fire. The crystal in his pocket was pulsing so fast now it felt like a second heartbeat. "What exactly do you want me to do?" he asked, sitting carefully beside her. "Your sister tested my body. Nisara tested my mind. What's left?" Zafira smiled, and when she did, tiny stars seemed to sparkle in her eyes. "I test something deeper, something your people call the soul, though we have a different word for it." She held up one hand, and energy flowed around it like liquid light. All things in the universe are connected by energy. It flows through stars, through planets, through every living being. Most species can sense it but cannot touch it. We Zafirians learned to control it through discipline and rigid training. The energy formed shapes in the air, flowers, birds, dancing figures that moved with impossible grace. "But you humans," she continued, "you are different. You touch energy, not with your minds, but with your hearts. You shape reality through emotion, through feeling, through something we lost long ago. Marcus watched the energy patterns, fascinated. What did you lose? Wonder, Zafira said simply. Joy, the ability to feel surprise and delight at the universe's beauty. We became so focused on controlling energy that we forgot how to play with it. She stood up, and suddenly the air around them exploded with color and light. Energy flowed, like rivers of rainbow fire, forming patterns too beautiful to describe. Your test is simple, Zafira said. I will teach you to touch the energy that flows through all things. If you can learn to shape it with your human heart instead of Zafirian discipline, you pass. If you cannot, she shrugged. Then perhaps the bond chose wrongly. Marcus stood up, feeling nervous. I don't know anything about energy manipulation. I'm just a shopkeeper. That is why you might succeed where others have failed, Zafira said. Close your eyes. Feel the energy around you. Do not try to control it. Just listen to what it wants to become. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to feel whatever Zafira was talking about. At first there was nothing. Then slowly, he began to sense something. A warm tingling that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Good, Zafira whispered. Now, do not think. Do not plan. Just remember something that made you happy. Marcus thought of his grandfather's workshop back on Earth. The smell of wood shavings and whiskey. The old man's hands showing him how to fix things, how to make them work. Again. The pride in his grandfather's eyes when Marcus learned something new. The tingling became warmer. Now, Zafira said, let that feeling flow through you. Let it become real. Marcus felt something shift inside him. The energy around him seemed to respond to his memories, his emotions. When he opened his eyes, small lights were dancing around. His hands, not the controlled patterns Zafira created, but wild, chaotic sparkles that moved like fireflies on a summer night. Beautiful, Zafira breathed. So different from our rigid forms. Show me more. For the next hour, Zafira taught Marcus to touch the energy that flowed through everything. She was right. He couldn't control it the way Zafirians did, through discipline and training. But when he thought of things that mattered to him, his grandfather, the taste of good whiskey, the satisfaction of helping Velothea, the energy responded with eager joy. When Marcus thought of his grandfather's stories, the energy formed swirling patterns like smoke from a campfire. When he remembered the moment he gave Velothea the whiskey, warm golden light flowed around him like liquid sunshine. This is impossible, Zafira said, watching the chaotic light show Marcus was creating. Energy cannot be shaped by emotion alone. It requires precision, control, years of training. Maybe for Zafirians, Marcus said, laughing as rainbow lights danced between his fingers. But humans are good at making impossible things work. That was when everything changed. The crystal in Marcus's pocket suddenly blazed with blinding light. The energy around him went wild, forming patterns that neither he nor Zafira could control. And in that burst of chaotic power, Marcus felt something he had never experienced before. He could sense the three sisters as if they were part of him. Lyrelith's warrior courage, Nisara's infinite curiosity, Zafira's joy in the universe's beauty. But more than that, he could feel their thoughts, their emotions, their very souls, and they could feel his. The connection was overwhelming. Marcus gasped and fell to his knees as alien memories flooded his mind. He saw through Lyrelith's eyes as she fought across a dozen star systems. He felt Nisara's wonder as she discovered new knowledge. He experienced Zafira's pure delight in the dance of energy through space. But they were experiencing him too. His human memories, his emotions, his way of seeing the universe. And the shock of it sent all four of them reeling. What is happening? Zafira cried, her own control over energy flickering wildly. Marcus could barely speak through the flood of sensations. The bond, he managed to say. It's not just marriage, it's actual connection. We're becoming part of each other. Lyrolith and Nasara came running from their ships, drawn by the explosion of uncontrolled energy. When they reached the roof, all four of them were caught in the same psychic storm. This should not be possible, Nisara said, her voice shaking. The marriage bond is ceremonial, symbolic. It does not create actual mental links. It does for humans, Marcus realized, understanding flooding through him along with alien memories. That's why your mother was so interested in the whiskey. That's why she really gave me the crystal. She knew this would happen. Through the bond, he felt the sisters' confusion and growing fear. They had expected to test a primitive human, maybe marry him for political reasons. They had not expected to become permanently connected to an alien mind that thought in ways they couldn't predict. But Marcus also felt something else through the link: loneliness. For all their power and technology, the Zephyrians had lost something important. They had become so focused on control and discipline that they had forgotten how to feel wonder at the universe. Don't fight it, Marcus said, struggling to his feet. Let me show you something. He opened his heart to the energy around them, but this time he shared the experience through the bond. The sisters felt what it was like to touch energy with human emotion instead of Zephyrian discipline. They experienced the chaotic joy of creation without control, the wild beauty of patterns that formed themselves. For the first time in their long lives, the three alien princesses felt what it was like to play. The energy around them exploded into the most beautiful light show any of them had ever seen. Colors that had no names danced through the air. Patterns formed and dissolved and reformed in endless, joyful chaos. And through it all, Marcus felt the sisters' amazement as they experienced wonder through human eyes. When the light show finally ended, the four of them sat on the roof in comfortable silence. The bond was still there, but gentler now, like a warm current connecting their hearts. I understand now, Lyrolith said quietly, why our mother chose you. You have not just passed our tests, you have changed us. And we have changed you, Nisara added. I can feel it. The bond works both ways. You are becoming part Zephyrian, just as we are becoming part human. Zephyra laughed, a sound like silver bells. The universe has played a wonderful joke on us all. We came to test a potential husband, and instead we found a teacher. Marcus looked at the three alien women who were now somehow part of his family. So what happens now? Now, said a familiar voice from below, we celebrate. Velothea stood in the courtyard behind Marcus's trading post, but she was not alone. Dozens of Zephyrian ships had landed, and more were arriving every minute. Warriors, scholars, energy workers, representatives of the most powerful species in the galaxy had come to witness something unprecedented. You have done something remarkable, Marcus Chen, Velothea called up to them. You have created the first true bond between human and Zephyrian consciousness. Through you, our species can learn from each other. As Marcus climbed down from the roof with his three alien wives, he realized that his simple act of kindness, giving a bottle of whiskey to a grieving mother, had changed everything. Not just for him, but for humanity's place in the galaxy. Tiat. Bond hummed gently in his mind, connecting him to three of the most powerful beings in known space. Through their eyes, he saw the universe as it truly was, infinite, wonderful, and full of possibilities. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he could swear he heard his grandfather's laughter, proud that his whiskey had finally brought the galaxy together. The wedding, Velothea announced, would last for 7 days, and every species in the galaxy was invited. Marcus Chen, former failed shopkeeper, was about to become the most important human in history, and it all started with a bottle of whiskey and a simple act of kindness.